Okay, we now welcome on a very, very, very special guest. It is Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred. Thank you so much, Mr. Commissioner. What would you prefer to be called? Mr. Commissioner, Rob, Bob, Bobo?
Rob would be just fine.
Okay. Well, appreciate you coming on. We're trying to collect all the commissioners. Anytime a commissioner is offered to us, we're like, we have to do it because obviously we're big sports guys and it's very important. Let's start with, though, congratulations for an incredible All-Star game. I would say MLB is the last sport that has an All-Star game that matters, and the swing-off was great. Are you using the swing-off maybe in the future in maybe some regular season stuff, and how would you assess the whole All-Star game?
Well, let me start with the All-Star game. The entire 4 days was fantastic for us. It really was. We had a great home run derby, really exciting, great attendance at Play Ball Park, which, gives people that don't get into the stadium an opportunity to participate in the weekend. And, the game, although they got out 6-0, turned out to be a great game. And I loved the swing off. I thought it was really exciting. It was crazy in the ballpark. Really, really exciting. Having said that, I don't think people need to worry about home run derbies at the end of regular season games, at least not for right now. I mean, it's not something we're talking about. We went to it. The All-Star game is, different, obviously, than a regular season game. It gives us the ability to let the managers use all the players during the 9 innings. You hate to have guys come all the way to the All-Star game and then not play. Frankly, for the fans, it's a really exciting way to end the game.
Yeah, it was. And the swing-off was incredible. But when I was watching the swing-off, I couldn't help but think, what if the home run derby was built like the swing-off, where we go back to the format where you get a set amount of swings as opposed to the timing? Have you given any thought to changing the format of the home run derby?
Yeah, we will regroup with ESPN and talk about the format of the home run derby. It's one of those things that because it's an exhibition, it's easier to change the rules. There's a variety of considerations there. It's so fast now. We wanted to make it faster, but it's so fast now. There's some complaints that people can't even see the home run, because the next one's coming so quickly.
Yeah.
Look, I don't think people appreciate how exhausting it is for the players to take that many swings that fast. So, it's something we will talk about.
I did think that the home run derby was a lot of fun to watch. I think maybe the biggest reason, there were rumors going into the home run derby that maybe older guys like Christian Yelich were going to play. And America does not want to see that. So that was a great decision by getting the young guys. And we don't need Christian Yelich in the home run derby.
I think we should just make it a rule, like under 30 years old, home run derby only. Because we want to it's young stars, it's a showcase.
I can't tell you the exact number now. I had it in my head and I've kind of lost it. But, a lot of the young guys that were in that, they're so motivated. It's $1 million prize. It's significant. When you're making many millions in a year, it's not quite so important. But I do think you get from the young guys, they get excited to do it. It's an opportunity for them to get real exposure. The prize is worth it, significant to them. So I take your point about the young guys. And look, in general, our game is so young right now. The guys are coming into the big leagues. They're making an impact really a lot faster than it used to happen.
Yeah. I don't know if you could fix this. I've heard you talk about it where you guys had a strategy with your media where you had a place where everyone went to go watch MLB, and then you realized, hey, we got to go where the people are, and we're going to let the clips be out there more. Is there any way we can work on games getting blacked out in certain areas? Because I know there's a lot of fans that struggle with that, and it's like, I just want to watch the game. I feel like I pay, to be able to watch every game. I want to be able to watch the Cubs when I'm not in Chicago, but I also want to be able to watch it on my phone when I'm in Chicago. So is there a fix for that?
Yeah, look, remember, there's fans talk about blackouts. Number one are at the top of my list in terms of things we need to deal with. And there's really conceptually 3 kinds of blackouts, right? There's club has an exclusive territory. They have an exclusive deal with usually a regional sports network. And for some reason, in an outlying territory, that regional sports network isn't on every cable provider, okay? That one's a tough one for us, right? I mean, because there's a contract in place, there's exclusivity, hard to deal with. The second kind that people talk about is that a lot of RSNs don't have full distribution, even in the core market anymore. And again, that's something we can work on. We're working hard on it to make sure we've taken over 5 clubs. And for those clubs, tried to make sure that as many cable providers as possible have distribution. And then, of course, the last one is national exclusivity. And we have a lot of national partners right now, right? We obviously the big one, Fox and TNT, TBS, but in addition, Apple and that has some exclusivity. And we are going to make an effort when we redo our national deals to be a little more streamlined, fewer places that have games so that fans can find them more easily.
I appreciate that because it really is as simple as like everyone just wants to be able to watch without jumping through a ton of hoops. You know, the game is the most important part.
Frictionless. And look, the ideal, and I got to be completely clear about this. We don't get there till 2028 because that's when our national deals are up. Mm-hmm. But ideally, where you would like to be is if you have a digital home for baseball, you can go there and buy what you want to buy, in market, out of market, however many games you want to buy. And if it's not there, it's on 1 or 2 maybe national outlets that most people have, right? Yeah. You know, that's where you'd like to get ideally.
I think, that would be a great place to end up at. Right now, we're after the All-Star game. We saw the use of the robot umps. I know that you grade out the umpires. Major League Baseball gives grades to the umpires depending on their performance. How would you grade the robot that called balls and strikes during the All-Star game?
Yeah, I'm big on ABS. I call it the automated strike zone system because, we're still going to have a human umpire behind the plate doing his thing. But look, the technology is awesome. Our umpires do a great job. But look, calling balls and strikes is tough for any human being. And I do think that the challenge system is, kind of consistent with the idea of instant replay. Give us a chance to use technology to get it right in high leverage situations.
I do think that in 15, 20 years, we're going to be looking back and saying, I can't believe that we had human beings with their eyeballs trying to determine like a span of inches on guys throwing 100 miles per hour.
It is a hard job. It is a really hard job.
Will you at least give us, if you go all the way to robots, will you have the ability for the robots to eject managers and pitchers?
Oh, yeah. Look, one of our principal considerations really, I know you're being funny, but the fact is we really do want to maintain the role of the home plate umpire as the guy that manages the game. You saw it. He's got an earpiece in his ear. It doesn't look very different than the regular game. And we think that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that there's a CBA coming up. You guys are in discussions, the owners and the union, talking about what the next iteration of baseball from the financial aspect is going to look like. A lot of people have talked about the salary cap floor in exchange for the salary cap. Is that something that you feel is going to happen in the next CBA?
Look, I spent most of my career in collective bargaining, and one thing I've learned is making predictions in advance is usually not accurate in terms of how it turns out and really not helpful to the process. I will tell you this. We have a ton of fans that feel in a lot of markets who feel like, their team that they're passionate about doesn't have a fair opportunity to compete. And at the end of the day, we sell competition and we need to be listening to those fans.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So another thing that bothers us from our point of view, and when we do the show, we try to stick up for fans. Is there anything that you can do when you have ownership, and I'm not going to name specific ones, but they're not specifically trying to put out a winner year in and year out? Like it's clear that they're not trying to compete for championships. I think it's such a disservice to a city and a fan base when that is happening. And I don't know what the fix is. And it might be just an impossible question, but it feels like there's got to be something there, or maybe get them out and get someone in there who wants to spend the money to try to put out a winner.
Yeah, let me say it this way. I think it is usually a mistake to focus on the owner. When it appears that the owner isn't trying, okay, it is usually a product of the system in which you're working. And I do believe that it's incumbent on us and the union, for the sake of our fans, to create a system where the incentives to always appear like you're doing the most possible for your fans to compete is a really important goal for both of us, everybody involved in the game.
Yeah, I think that you do have conflicting interests sometimes, because you've got the reality is that in baseball, you don't have to spend money to make money if you own a team, right? Over the course of the years, the value of your team, it's going to go up. If history has taught us anything, it's a very sound investment that you're making. You don't necessarily have to put the payroll out there to have a winning product to be successful as a businessman from the ownership perspective. So Big Cat and I have actually tossed around a couple ideas of what could happen. Maybe you have 3 years in a row. Maybe let's go
5 years.
5 years in a row. You finish in last place in the division. The owners then have to sit in the cheap seats with the fans for the entire season and get to deal with them face to face.
Well, let me say this. Let me go backwards. It's important to really, particularly when you get into a bargaining year, that people understand what's really going on in the sport. Okay, with respect to franchise values, and this is a fact, and it's a surprising fact. The slowest growth in franchise values of the four major professional sports over the last decade has been baseball. Okay, and that is in large part due to the perception of a lot of fans that you're talking about, where they feel their team doesn't have a fair opportunity to compete. I think that when you see a situation where the fans feel, gee, he's not spending, usually this is the thinking that goes on. I'm making money on my operations year in and year out. Pick a number. I'm making $20 million, right? So the owner goes to his analytics guy and says, look, I can put another $20 million into payroll. And the analytics guy tells him, look, the expectation is with $20 million more in payroll, you're going to win 2 more games and that's it, because you're still going to be $150 million less than the big boys. That's the conundrum that those owners find themselves in. They don't have the capacity to spend, to get close enough to make themselves more competitive. And we need to fix that for the benefit of the fans in those markets.
But some of those owners just don't even try. They'll be like, oh, you could tell me I could get 10 more wins and I won't even, I'm just going to go and put my product out there and make my money. That's where I get frustrated, when it feels like those owners aren't really actually putting the full effort out there.
Yeah, I can't tell you that it doesn't look like that sometimes. I can tell you it is the very rare circumstance where an owner doesn't want to win. I mean, the fact of the matter is people don't buy these for business, just because of the business or to make money. They buy it because they want to compete. They want to deliver to their community a winner. And, we need to get them within a structure where they have a better opportunity to do that in all of our markets.
Maybe a test when you're thinking of becoming an owner, a ball knowers test. How many home runs does Barry Bonds have?
Yeah.
Give them a standardized test. If they don't know the sport, they don't get the team.
Just have them throw. Just have them pay, just say, hey, here, throw me this ball.
Yeah.
I just want to see what it looks like.
Watch the form.
Yeah.
Look, I don't want to defend my guys endlessly. I will tell you this. The level of baseball knowledge among our ownership group is unbelievably high.
Yeah, but can they throw?
Yeah, well, that's a different issue.
Okay, well, there we go. Maybe that's what we got to do.
That's an entire look. I can't throw. So, what do you want me to tell you?
We got some dumb. We love dumb ideas, so we're just gonna throw a couple at you.
Okay.
You could just say no, but some of them might be interesting to you. Have you ever thought about the ceremonial first pitch counting?
No.
What do you think about that?
Well, usually when I think about ceremonial first pitches, I have to say I think I'm like a lot of prudent first pitch throwers. You just don't want to embarrass yourself.
Right,
Yep.
right. But think about it like 50 Cent or the president or Beyonce. They are pitching to a live batter, and the first pitch counts. What do you think?
I have to tell you, the only one on that list of three that you listed, President Trump has assured me on more than one occasion he can throw a hell of a first pitch. The other two, you're on your own.
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
George Bush had maybe the most iconic first pitch of all time. That should have counted as a strike.
Yeah.
Yeah. President Bush was actually a player in college and is a pretty darn good athlete.
Yeah. So we're curious when we actually do have one more dumb idea for you.
I have a couple more.
Okay. The bases. Have you thought about making them even bigger?
Well, that's interesting. I have to tell you that the bigger base idea of all of those rule changes, like I got the clock. I understood why we were doing that from the very beginning. The shift thing, I got that too. We'll get people where they're supposed to be and, you're going to get a little more offense. I really like the bigger base thing. I'm like, what? My guys came to me with that. I'm like, what the hell are you guys thinking about? But in some ways, it's been the most exciting change in terms of making the running game such a significant part of the sport again.
Yeah, I was right there with you, and then somebody just explained to me, PFT, they're bigger. And then I was like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. And you think about it, they're not, the difference in size is not so much, but man, it has really made a difference in terms of the way the game's played.
Okay, another dumb idea. This might be where you start looking at the guys behind the camera and you're like, why did you set me up with this interview? Just hear me out, though. No bad ideas. Can we be in the trust tree? No bad ideas?
100%.
Okay.
I will not be overly critical. How about that?
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Steroid month.
Oh.
Just 1 month
you
where
really are pushing the
yeah. Listen, you said it, though. You said we're in the trust tree.
I understand. Look, let me say this. I understand that people like to see home runs, and, because of my professional experience, I understand that steroids work. I'm a hard no. How about that?
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Fair enough.
All right, that's fair.
What if steroid month was October?
Yeah, that's true.
Now we're talking about ratings.
All right, all right, back to real questions. What's going on with the balls? I don't understand. So I don't buy into all the theories of like they're super juice this year, but it does feel like there is a difference year to year. Is that something you guys are actively trying to figure out?
Yeah, so let's be clear about this year. The only complaint that's been made about the ball this year is that it has more drag, which actually makes it harder to hit home runs, which kind of doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense when you look at who's leading in the American League, particularly those two, right?
Right.
A lot of home runs being hit. But here's the problem. Our ball is handmade. You go to Costa Rica, they're made in a factory. They are literally hand sewn. Right? It's leather, all natural materials, hand sewn. Year to year, there will be variation with a handmade product. It's like human, the human condition, right? Can't be perfect. And, we test them extensively. We have a range within which they fall every single year. And we've actually gone through a process where we've tightened those ranges and taken more control actually by investing in Rawlings and making sure there's no changes in the process to minimize the differences year to year. Will that issue ever go away? When you work in the game as long as I have, there are certain issues that are never going away. You are always going to hear about the baseball, no matter what we do.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's absolutely true, that the baseballs will always be a story.
I'm curious, whenever we talk to a commissioner, you are the second commissioner on Part of My Take, I always want to know what does a commissioner do on a day-to-day basis? Like how much of your time is spent putting out fires versus meeting with rights holders versus talking to ownership? Like what a normal day at the office for a commissioner?
So I think about my job kind of two silos, right? On the silo that I think of as the governance side, that's regular communication with ownership, franchise transfers, disciplinary matters, collective bargaining. That's it. Literally, it breaks down. That's about half the time, and then the other half of the time is what you would expect from somebody that runs, Central Business is a $6 billion business. It's, media rights, licensing problems, just the everyday running of a business that generates that kind of revenue.
Do you have time to watch all the games? Do you watch baseball every day?
I watch a lot of baseball. I grew up a Yankee fan. I watch a lot of Yankee games still. I try to balance that off by equal time with the Mets because I live in New York. But most nights I'm flipping between Yankee or Met and the extra innings package to follow what's going on in the rest of the league.
We have a coworker who's not going to like the fact that you said that you watch more Yankees than Mets.
Yeah,
he has dubbed you Rob Manfred. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, that's a clever play on words.
Frank the Tank, listen, you should do a walk with Frank the Tank. We can get that set up. It would be an electric interview.
Are you familiar with Frank the Tank?
Yeah, look, yes, I am. I am. Honestly, I'm getting old. I sat behind, right behind home plate at Citi Field, right in back of two of your colleagues.
Okay.
Who were big Mets fans, and I can't remember who it was.
It might have been Frank and Stu, which is like if you can sit behind them, then you're good. Like you've passed the test.
Can I tell you something? So here's the thing: I'm a beer drinker. I try to do it not necessarily sitting in a ballpark for obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, these two guys put together a collection of empty cups that was really. I mean, it was impressive.
All right, maybe it wasn't Frank and Stu.
Yeah, Frank. Maybe if it was like, Frank is on that good, clean living right now.
We chatted back and forth, and the whole thing. And I can tell you who I was with. I just can't remember the two guys' names, but they were impressive.
The biggest complaint that Frank has had is that he says that you don't love baseball. Do you love baseball?
Can I tell you something? When you spend. I started working on baseball first as an outside lawyer for 10 years and then working here. Since 1988, I have done one thing in my professional career, and that's worked in baseball. And, some days are good. Some days are great. Other days are really, really hard. And if you don't love this game, you don't want to do this.
Are you still romantic about baseball?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll tell you, there were a couple of things at the All-Star game that, kind of you do get almost emotional about. I was down on the field before the game and I was watching Joe Torre, who's worked with me for years and years, back in uniform as a coach, went over and chatted with Joe, and he said a couple of things about what he was thinking that I have to tell you, just really stirring. I mean, it just makes you feel great about the game and how important the game is.
And the Hank Aaron moment, that was another one.
That was great.
Unbelievable.
That was great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely unbelievable. And for me, I knew Hank and his wife, Billy, for a long time. He and Commissioner Seelig were very close. And, so I'd see him frequently at special events. To me, the most emotional part of that was watching Billy during that. She's a great woman, and it was a great tribute and just really emotional to see how she reacted to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I got a real question about, the Frank, we're joking with the man fraud thing, but although he does call you that all the time. But how do you kind of compartmentalize and deal with that where you're getting booed or people are blaming you for everything? Because I think it is one of those things with the commissioners of all four sports leagues where there's, some things you can disagree with, but at the end of the day, their job isn't really to be liked, and they get killed a lot, and that's kind of part of what you sign up for. Can you, does it affect you?
Look, anybody who tells you it doesn't bother them, they're probably not telling you the truth. Nobody likes to get booed. I'll tell you a funny story. So my 7-year-old grandson went to the draft. He sat right in the front row. And there was two funny things about that. When you come out and you see this little kid that you love dearly, he's clapping his hands out. The boos don't matter you quite as much.
Right.
But, he came in the next morning and I was sitting having a cup of coffee and he said to me, Papa, there was no booze last night. I said, George, you got to be boo deaf if you didn't hear the boo.
That's a good grandson. Who loves his grandfather.
Great grandson. But look, it's part of the job. You understand that, people want to express themselves. and you try not to pay too much attention to it. You have to be thick-skinned and accept it for what it is.
Is that something that you guys are going to be talking about in the next CBA in regards to the draft? The idea that it's not always the best player or the player that most teams have at the top of their draft board that will get drafted in the top positions, because of how you get slotted in with how much money you're expected to sign for.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit disjointed from every other draft that we've seen where it's, you take the best player with the top pick.
Yeah, I think that there are aspects of our draft that have gotten away from a really, really simple but important concept. The team that was the worst last year should get the best player in the draft, and there should be nothing that interferes with that correlation, right? So, if hard slots are what it takes to make that happen, that's what we ought to do. The lottery thing, I'm not sure that it really affects behavior of teams in any meaningful way. And, sometimes you get into these situations where the team that was the worst is picking further down in the draft than they ought to be. I'm a believer, every 30 picks, a team should have a pick, and unless they've traded it somehow, and that the worst team should get the first pick.
Yeah. All right. This has been great. Thank you so much, Rob. I got one last question. It's the Roback question, rhoback.com, promo code TAKE. 20% off your first purchase, Q-Zips, polos, hoodies, joggers, shorts, roback.com, promo code TAKE. So awesome having you on. You're always welcome to come back. My last question is, do you think the 50-50 raffles at each stadium are rigged, and how the hell can I win it?
I don't think they're rigged, and I got nothing for you on that one.
Oh, come on. All right, what about this? Can we get some gold cards?
Listen, here's the thing. Oh, gold cards you got to earn.
All right.
Gold cards you got to earn.
Yep, fair.
All right, listen, guys, it was fun to be with you. I'm glad I had a chance to do it. We'll do it again, I'm sure.
All right. Thanks so much.
Sounds
Thanks
good.
so much.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Take care.